What up? This is Rama Screen, and in the anticipation of the new documentary film Bleeding Audio, which is part of the lineup at the virtual Slam Dance Film Festival, I'm here talking with director Chelsea Christer and producer Erin Persley. How are you, Chelsea and Erin?
Hanging in there, but doing all right. How are
Excellent.
you?
So
Good, good, good. Thank you for taking the time. So, I got to be honest with you both. Prior to this docu, I have no idea who the Matches was. I mean, this band from Oakland, California, formerly known as the Locals, run from 1997 through 2009, and then reunion tour 2014 through 2018. I have no idea who they were. This is all news to me, which probably goes to the essence of this docu. So, let me start by asking both of you, Chelsea and Aaron. Were you fans of the Matches, and what led you to making a documentary about them?
So I first heard of the Matches in 2005. They opened for a band I loved called Motion City Soundtrack, and they literally just like blew me away. Like I just felt so compelled by their performance and just their affability. They were in the crowd talking to people, and just as the years went by, I ended up doing some video work for them when I was in film school in San Francisco. And I became friends with them, and we all stayed in touch. And when they decided to reunite, they let me know, and I said, oh my gosh, let me help you, let me support you, let me make these promo videos. And as I was interviewing them, I thought, wow, this story's way bigger than I even thought it was. And I was like on the inside circle, and I thought I knew what led to their breakup. And so I thought, okay, like I think this could be a feature-length film. And after a lot of convincing, I eventually got them all on board, since they're such humble guys. And yeah, here we are.
yeah, so like you, I hadn't heard of the Matches when I joined the project. I'd met Chelsea at a female filmmaker collective in San Francisco, and she was about I guess 3 years into the film, maybe 2.5, somewhere in that space. And had mentioned that she was sort of in a place where she was looking for a producer, and had a rough assembly / rough cut. And so I said, oh, I'd love to take a look. And so I watched it. And again, no prior knowledge of the Matches, didn't really know of their music, didn't really know them bandmates as well, and watched it and was really just captivated by the story. And I think that's what really drew me in, is if someone who has no background on the music or the rock stars themselves can really be invested in the story, then I knew it had a much larger audience. And so sort of from that moment on, I was like, I would love to be a part of the project. And we've been working 3 years since, or a little over 3 years now. But yeah, so it's been a great journey. But I think it's great to hear how people, when they watch the film, sort of what their background is, because I think there is such a wide range of responses depending on where you fall on that sort of music spectrum.
How much access did the Matches allow you to delve into the process of making this docu? Were there stuff that they were like, this is too personal, maybe if you could leave this out of the documentary, please? Anything like that?
It kind of ebbed and flowed. At first, I think they were really surprised that I even wanted to make the effort. And it got to a point when they were like, well, it's your time, and it really felt like there was nothing off limits, and I think being like close with the band and being friendly with the band, like it allowed us to have those conversations regularly. I wasn't making the film from afar. Like I was making the film and engaging them whenever I had a question that felt like it might go into personal or not. Like it was always an open dialogue. They had zero involvement with actually making the film. They just gave me their time. But when it came to telling their personal stories, there was nothing that they specifically said were off limits, but it was always a conversation in just my own intrigue and interest as a friend, but also as a storyteller, and trying to understand what moments in this part of their life would be meaningful for them to personally reflect on, but also as something that an audience member could view and either take something out of it for themselves and their own experience in either being a fan or a musician in the industry.
I'm a film critic, and so I mostly deal with movies. And when it comes to music industry, I'm pretty ignorant about this. So there's some new stuff that I was learning as I was watching this docu. about how and why they broke up. After a decade doing their thing, they couldn't make it big, and their album sales number kept dropping. Later on, turns out the manager didn't register many of their songs. So, explain to us, what is the significance of registering your songs, and what does that mean? What are the benefits, and what happens when you don't register them?
Yeah, so when you register your song, it's like copywriting it. It's like saying,
Mm,
"Hey, I wrote this. This is here. This is mine." And
mm,
there's something called a PRO. It's a publishing rights organization. There's several of them. The main ones are ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. And what those organizations essentially do is they collect royalties on behalf of the songwriter, right? And these royalties come in the form of, oh, it played on the radio, oh, it, streamed on, Spotify or Pandora. But back then, I mean, what those royalties were too was record sales. So it wasn't just, this amorphous, oh, if it plays somewhere, you get money. It also is the payout you get from your record sales. Like they track that from all the stores and then you make money off of it. That's how the money filters from a publishing rights organization to a band. So if you don't register your songs, no one's, I mean, they're keeping track of what these sales are, but there's no one to pay it out to. And a lot of these PROs, they a lot of them have windows of like, oh, within 90 days, if you register your songs, you'll, get your payout. But I mean, and again, like this is all big spoilers, but it was years. It was their entire career, so every record sale, they didn't make any money, every time I think the most heartbreaking thing is, American radio doesn't pay out for mechanicals, which is like if you perform on it. There's so many things that I've learned. So, forgive me if I'm kind of slipping through here, but
hey, me too.
but the American radio stations don't pay out, and they pay out differently than like an Australian radio station does. And while the matches never had radio play in the United States, they did in Australia.
Mm.
So it's like they were on regular rotation. They had a single there. They were kind of the rock stars there that they never really were in the States. So that, to me, that's the biggest question mark is, God, like what would it, what would those checks have been, and what could have sustained the band in a way to like create a healthier lifestyle for them because of how relentlessly they were touring? Like what would that payout would have been to like give the band the life that they needed? Because surviving solely on tour income, if there's any case study we can look at, like the matches are proof that that wasn't really possible. And they are known for having sold a ton of merchandise because it was so creative and people loved buying it. But like if they had that additional income, like there's just, it's really interesting. So anyway, so registering your songs is super important.
Okay.
I'm known to soapbox on this, but registering your songs is super important because it allows somebody on your behalf to track how your song is played so they can pay you for it later.
Yeah, I think what I found so interesting and why we're trying to figure out how to weave that story within the bigger story of the matches is artist sustainability is a really important thing. I mean, especially now in COVID, it's such a different world. I feel like. But thinking through how you can make a sustainable career as an artist, whether you're a musician or a filmmaker or even a painter, and so the business aspect of that world is so like never really talked about, right? Even when I went to film school, there wasn't a class on like how to be an entrepreneur, like about contracts and all these different things, and you have to sort of learn on your own. And so what I found really important and I think really enlightening about the film is it shows sort of how complex these issues are, but really how important it is to support these artists, like musicians, like the matches, right? And how I think the greater general audience, or even the listeners, even the diehard matches fan, had no idea sort of how they could have helped them. But I think it's important to know how significant it is to buy those albums and to reach out and go to those shows, and what kind of how the money is dispersed and what that looks like. So for me, I think it's a story that all artists can really relate to. Even Chelsea and I in making this film, when we had a lot of learnings around feature documentary and navigating that path. And so I think it's like I said, a really universal story.
And also, one thing that stood out about the documentary is that part where the album sales dropping that I mentioned earlier. There's this emphasis about CDs, and some musicians or artists have trouble adapting to the digital or internet age. I mean, does that speak to the band's inability to adapt? Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, I think what's like really interesting about the match's story is that their timeline more or less overlapped with the industry shifting in a big way. And
Mm,
so the way that their career was handled was in my observations was based on an old model in a new world. And so a lot of the handling of how they were promoting and releasing records was based on a model that was very successful in the 90s, but like wouldn't necessarily apply with this new digital era. The
mhm.
matches were so innovative and so creative. They were also, kind of coming up right before social media was becoming a big thing. I know that they had a great engagement on MySpace, but like Facebook barely existed by the time that the band broke up. They didn't even have a Twitter, Instagram didn't even exist. And just knowing how innovative they were in engaging their community, in an analog world and not in a digital social media world, I have no doubts in my mind that the band wouldn't have taken advantage of those opportunities with their DIY and community spirit. Um, so it is hard to say. I mean, we can sit here and coulda, woulda, shoulda everything that that the band could have gone through, and how record sales, did impact, the band, and labels were still using record sales as a benchmark for what they would invest in a band, which I think is the biggest kind of, issue that was coming through in that time. But I think the biggest, learning from the film is, while the matches didn't skyrocket to the fame that I feel like all of us, who love the band feel like they deserved, I feel like what they got was something that was more meaningful to them in the end. And it's, they're not like playing arenas, but they're playing packed houses to people who like truly love them and they love in return.
Have they watched the docu? What were their responses to it?
I they love the film in general. Like I've talked to all the guys, they love it. I know the first time I showed it to Justin, I think it was a therapy session for him. The first time I showed it to John Devoto, it was a reflection on him where he was like, I'm ridiculous. And I'm like, you are, but we love you for it. And for Sean, I think for him, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he's still processing it in a lot of ways. I think Sean had the biggest journey throughout the matches process. And I think, there was a lot for him to unpack there. Matt Whalen is just consistent as ever. He was like, it's great. Classic.
Is it fair to say that this is sort of a cautionary tale, if you will? What advice does this docu give to aspiring bands out there? What should they look out for? Maybe be careful who you hire as a manager.
I kept on thinking with that is the one thing that we didn't want to make this film. We didn't want to make a behind the scenes like VH1 special, right? We didn't want to make this like salacious of like what went wrong, really. And I don't think we did. Hopefully, everyone agrees with me on that. But what I think was important is to really show like an honest and really true portrayal of what it's like for these lesser known bands and what the struggle is like. Of course, there are definitely red flags that you see, and we all see those red flags in 2020 hindsight, right? We're like, oh, but I think part of it is there's a bit of like of learning that has to go if you want to be in this in any business like this. Like I said, I think there's a business side that you don't learn about that you and you don't think you need to, but I think you do need to be aware of who you trust and who you bring into your circle and what collaboration looks like. And I think again we can relate to that whether it's a band or a film or any other kind of artist sort of endeavor. So part of that I would agree totally.
And
Yeah.
and just to add on that, I mean, I think it is a bit of a cautionary tale, but I also think, it's a hopeful one too. If there's anything that the matches story indicates is it's to in the digital era, it's to handle your business, and it's to recognize that even though we're here to have fun and make art, like if you're going to do this full time, it is a business, and it's a learning that I'm, still walking through myself on this own film, and it's something that the matches were all about creating the art that they wanted, and I think that was amazing. But I also think that, in the era that as it was transitioning, knowing how to handle your business in the digital age is so crucial for creators today. But it's exciting because there can be more creators, like it's democratized so many art forms that were, unattainable for many people. And so, now anybody can like make a movie, anybody can make some music, but in order to do it for a living, you need to understand how to, how to be okay with maybe firing somebody or hiring somebody new, or understanding what you need to do in order to like keep your business moving and successful, and still being able to take ownership of your art.
Real quick, are they still together? Are they doing virtual performances? What's up? What's the update here?
Well, they were gonna do some live shows for us for our festival run, but obviously right now we're in the middle of a global pandemic, so that's not happening. But
Oh,
they've done a few virtual performances for us, and I don't know, they've got something brewing. So I would pay attention to them, but I can't say much more than that.
all right. Looking forward to it. So, finally, where can my fans watch the documentary Bleeding Audio? I understand it's coming to Slam Dance. I hear about the drive-in theaters coming up as well. And will there be digital release of Bleeding Audio? Talk to me about that.
Yes, we are super pumped to be a part of Slam Dance 2021. Woohoo. Um, I think they're still figuring out the drive-in Joshua Tree event. So I think at this point, you can find it virtually on their website, on Slam Dance's website. And we have some great festivals coming up as well afterwards in March. And I forget which one have been announced, Chelsea. So maybe you can tell me. I know we've had a couple new ones since the Slam Dance announcement.
So Oxford Film Festival just announced in Mississippi, and they are doing an outdoor presentation, live screening of Bleeding Audio, as well as a virtual presentation. And then we have another one that's announcing on Wednesday, but I don't know if I can announce it here. So I'll wait on that one. But we have a lot of opportunities coming up. The film festivals have been so generous, and we're excited about what's to come. So no broader distribution deal yet, but
Stay tuned. Yeah, follow us on our website if you want, sort of up-to-date information on all of our screenings, and definitely all of our social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We try to load those up as soon as we get more information for more screenings.
All right. For my fans at home, go check out Bleeding Audio coming to Slam Dance Film Festival 2021. Chelsea and Erin, thank you for talking to me, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.